Hi, I'm Beca EVANS, and this is my publication presentation for my podcast, It'll All Work Out. The podcast is a student-focused audio publication designed to support young people navigating university and early adulthood. The podcast combines relatable, conversational storytelling with practical advice, creating a space where students can feel understood, informed, and reassured. Each episode will explore key aspects of student life, including making friends, managing finances, dealing with academic pressure, and coping with uncertainty about the future. The central aim of the podcast is to act as a safe space, where common but unspoken experiences such as loneliness, comparison, or feeling behind are openly discussed. By blending personal experiences with wider perspectives, the podcast aims to both normalise these challenges and provide guidance on how to navigate them. The logo represents student life with a sticky note graphic, while the headphones emphasise the podcast format and sense of intimacy that I want my listeners to feel. The brand colours, which are a soft pastel and pink yellow, were chosen strategically to create a comforting impression and appeal to my target audience. Additionally, I use soft handwritten style typography to reflect the calm, relatable tone of the podcast, reinforcing the idea that this advice is coming from a peer rather than an authority figure. I chose the title It'll All Work Out because it reflects the core purpose of the podcast, to reassure students who may feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or anxious about university and the future. It also has a subtle double meaning, with the word work referring to not only things working out emotionally, but also to academic work, careers, and future employment. This reflects the broader concerns students have about university leading into working life. My reasoning for choosing this concept is that I wanted to create the podcast I wish I had when I was starting university. I was a high school student just 2 years ago, nervous about starting university, making friends, and figuring out how to cope with new responsibilities. I remember feeling overwhelmed and uncertain, and I know I wasn't the only one experiencing these worries. Research shows that this is a significant issue. For example, a press release by the UK government states that over half of students feel worried about loneliness even before starting university. This continues once they arrive, with around 44% of students saying they find it difficult to make friends, and 1 in 4 reporting that they feel lonely most or all of the time. In addition, wider research suggests that students commonly experience stress, anxiety, and pressure during university, particularly in their first year as they adjust to a new environment. This highlights a clear need for supportive and relatable media that can help students feel less alone and better prepared for university life. My podcast responds to this by creating a safe, reassuring space where these experiences are openly discussed, helping students navigate this transition with more confidence. So why this idea fills a gap in the market is that while there are some YouTube channels and blogs dedicated to university life and advice, most felt either overly formal or too polished. What I wished for was a relaxed, relatable conversational format, something that combines relatability with honest discussion and practical guidance from real students. Podcasts are intimate and easy to listen to, so this format allows students to feel less alone and to hear perspectives that they can connect with, even if they're feeling anxious or unsure. A podcast like It'll All Work Out could provide reassurance, normalise common struggles, and create a sense of community, helping students feel less alone as they navigate early adulthood. Ultimately, this podcast is designed to make students feel less alone while giving them realistic expectations and guidance. This leads to my main objectives in creating this concept, which are to encourage open discussions, inform and guide students, provide a safe space and reassure students and reduce anxiety, normalise common student experiences, challenge unrealistic expectations of university, build a sense of community and somewhere where listeners can feel less alone. Here is a mock-up of how the podcast would look under Spotify's app structure. As we can see, it provides a preview of every episode and their titles. These example episode titles demonstrate the focus on both emotional support and practical advice, addressing common concerns such as making friends, loneliness, and adjusting to university life. Social media presence is also an important factor. So here is an example of how the podcast account would appear on Instagram. The platform would be used to advertise and notify followers about new podcast episodes and any recent updates to keep listeners connected. Instagram's features such as polls and question boxes will also be useful to engage with followers by allowing them to share their opinions. For example, I could ask what they'd be interested in hearing in the next episodes so that I can ensure the content is beneficial and meets their needs. I felt it was necessary to research deeper into my chosen platforms and to ensure that they were the best option. I chose to create a podcast because research shows that it is a rapidly growing and highly accessible medium, particularly among younger audiences. In the UK, over half of the population has listened to a podcast, with around 1/3 listening to a podcast weekly. Podcasts are especially popular among younger listeners, which aligns directly with my target audience of students. Additionally, podcasts are valued for their convenience, with most people listening on their phones, allowing them to engage with content while commuting or relaxing, making it ideal for student lifestyles. I chose Instagram as the main platform to promote my podcast because it is one of the most widely used social media platforms in the UK, with around 35 million users, which amounts to almost 60% of the population. Instagram is particularly popular among younger audiences, with 18 to 24-year-olds making up one of the largest user groups at 31.8%, and over half of all UK social media users being under 35. This makes it a perfect way to reach my target audiences of high school and university students. Beyond the numbers, Instagram is highly visual and interactive, allowing brands, and in this case my podcast, to tell stories and engage with the community. As Guarino explains, Instagram allows users to share their own perspectives with others, which aligns perfectly with the interactive, relatable, and supportive style that I want for It'll All Work Out. In the mind map, I describe my target audiences. These include pre-university students, 16 to 18-year-olds, first-year students, second and third-year students, emotionally vulnerable students, social media and podcast users, specifically in our generation. And the demographics are people from age 16 to 24, UK-based students going from the school to university transition. The psychographics are people seeking reassurance, value authenticity, want honest, relatable content, and feel pressure from social media. To ensure good practice, the podcast prioritizes accuracy and responsibility. Advice shared would be informed by research and real student experiences, avoiding misinformation about student life. The podcast also takes a sensitive approach to topics such as loneliness and mental health, aiming to minimize harm and encourage positive support where needed. In terms of valuable journalism, the podcast focuses on representation and participation by including a range of student voices and encouraging audience interaction through shared experiences and listener submissions. Regarding consumption, modern audiences actively choose the content that is relevant to their lives. This podcast is designed to meet student needs by providing practical advice and relatable discussions. In relation to identity, university is a key period where individuals are developing their sense of self. The podcast supports this by addressing common pressures such as fitting in, comparison, and uncertainty. Finally, emotion plays an important role in media consumption. This podcast creates a sense of connection and belonging through personal storytelling and a supportive tone, helping students feel less alone in their experiences. There are several existing podcasts that share similarities with my concept. For example, Anything Goes with Emma Chamberlain uses a conversational tone and relatable style to discuss topics such as anxiety and personal growth, which creates a strong emotional connection with the audiences. However, it is not specifically focused on student life. Similarly, The Girls' Bathroom offers advice and encourages audience participation through listener dilemmas, but is more entertainment focused and often lacks research-based guidance. Private Story by Amy Charlize also uses a personal and honest tone, appealing to younger audiences, but however, it does not provide structured advice or focus specifically on university experiences. Therefore, my podcast fills a gap by combining relatability and storytelling with practical advice while focusing specifically on students navigating university life. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you like my idea. Thank you.